It's not the only triggers. That's within crypto. But what people in crypto need to understand as well is that there's a very bearish macro environment going on in traditional markets as well. So we can speak to that very quickly.
I guess before we get into it, you say macro. What does macro actually mean?
So macro is the overall larger environment. Like we're talking about specific stocks and investments and stuff here. The macro environment encompasses all the different I guess monetary instruments that play into the economy, the global economy at large. There's lots of things that go into that. We've got bigger players like the US because they've got the reserve currency, but there's many things that play into this environment as a more global thing that have got to do with what's happening within countries, what's happening in their own economies, what's happening in society, what's happening in the environment, all these different things that impact our economy and what we're talking about at a larger global level.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know we've got a few things that we really want to break down the different areas of the macro. We've got a few ones prepared to talk about.
So obviously the big first one is these aggressive rate hikes from the Fed. So inflation is the big topic. Everyone's talking about it. The inflation rates, what we're at, we're a bit over 8%.
Yeah, it's come down.
Come down a little bit.
Recent figures come down a little bit, not as much as expected, but yeah, it's on its way down.
Yeah, and so some of this stuff has been factored into the market, adjusted in as well. But in terms of sentiment anyway, people are going, oh, inflation, there's this big issue, this big scary thing that's been let out of the bag, and people are sort of scared. And then I feel those aggressive rate hikes are also affecting how players are moving in and around the market of going, well.
So Tom, why does raising rates decrease inflation?
So essentially what you've got is what rates are is their interest rates.
Yeah.
Right. So what we've done is there's this lever. Think about it like levers in an economy, right? So if the economy is in a downturn, for whatever reason, it's going to shit, stuff is worth less, we want to decrease interest rates, which means we want to reduce the amount of money that people have to pay back on their loans.
Right.
Because what we're doing is we are decreasing the worth of money and we are increasing the availability of money. So economies, really, the best way to think about it is economies go, it's how the flow of money goes. Okay. If the flow of money is going very quickly throughout an economy, then you've got an uptrend, you've got a bustling economy in a very general sense. And when different things are in a downturn, we have the flow of money stifles and decreases, it lowers. And so really what we need to see is easy access to money. And that's what we've, essentially seen over the last 10 years, since 2012, is we've gone, hey, we're going to lower interest rates so you have greater access to money and the money is cheaper. That's the big thing, right? So you've got these big companies, and that's where these tech companies, Google and Amazon, have absolutely capitalized to the whatever degree, because money has never been as cheap as it's been, because they can get, $1 billion loan and they're only paying, 2% interest back on it. So money's super cheap, right? So that's a good way, because that's how you stimulate the economy, right? You go, hey, there's cheap money. You're going to not pay that much interest rates. It goes around, everything goes around faster. Encourages growth and productivity. Away you go.
That's an interesting concept, though, that the flow of the money around an economy, that's provides strength to the economy.
Yeah, well, it means more people are transacting at a higher volume.
Makes sense.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Right? And when that reduces and people are going, oh, I'm a bit scared about the economy right now, they're putting their money under their bed. That means the money's not going to the retail. It's not going to all these other small businesses and large businesses. So you're getting the volume of money being reduced. Yeah. The transactions being reduced because people are just storing it. That's a downturn in the economy. That's, in a recession, people are just trying to store their money, right? So what you've got is that's a great lever to encourage a more positive uptrend in the economy. But that lever has been being pulled for the last 10 years, and rates have never been so low.
Yes.
So what we do is then, okay, well, let's put that lever back up and let's make interest rates higher. So that's going to then tackle in inflation, because really, if you got money that's really cheap, people are just using it all the time, then it's essentially to some degree debasing the value of a small amount, right? Easy money. Because then the other side of that, the other big lever we have is printing money, right? And we did that in excess during the COVID times.
Yeah.
Those stats about 1/6 of all money ever printed.
1/5.
1/5 was it ever printed was printed in the last 2 years.
There's probably going to be some flow-on effects from that.
Well, think about it, right? Like if you had 100 shells, all of a sudden that we're going to go, well, actually, we're going to then make a shitload more shells, and you could sell each shell for $10. Well, if you've now got 200 shells, you've got half the worth of it what it was.
There was a Facebook article that popped up earlier today. I think it was a town in Australia. I think it's Castlemaine, maybe. And they're trialing their own clay economy, their own clay dollars that they've kind of crafted. They're doing a little economic trial, $10,000 worth of clay coins. That'll be an interesting one to watch. See how the market responds to it. But the point being that if inflation's going up.
So that's essentially what inflation is that you're getting, so the denominator is increasing, right? So you're devaluing the currency. So when we're saying about 8%, it's what you have, you have $100, it's worth 8% less the next year. So you're getting less stuff, right, for your money. And so that's quite high. That's quite scary because, you got $100,000, it's going to be worth, $92,000 in the next year or whatever. So, roughly.
So what happens to countries who don't get their inflation problems under control?
So we've seen that before, and probably the best example of that is, and what we call that is hyperinflation. Germany in the early 1930s.
So the Second World War?
Before,
right,
and arguably led to the Second World War, because after the First World War, everyone came in there and smashed Germany and said, how dare you shouldn't have done that. And so what they did was completely took away their industrial areas. The French took over the industrial areas, and they just absolutely stifled their ability to have an economy of trade. So what happened is you had inflation go, over 100%. And so you had, the marks was, you could have 1 mark be able to buy bread one day, and then, within a few weeks or a month, you're going to have people spending millions of marks to buy. They were having barrel full of cash to buy a loaf of bread. And that's when inflation just goes completely out of control, right? And so that's the scariest thing. So people right now are going, why is the Fed being so aggressive? Why are they smashing markets? Why, obviously, whatever you think about Wall Street, but they're absolutely smashing their financial sector. Well, because their duty really is to, the 320 million Americans or whatever it is, the average person technically, and because it's the base currency, the rest of the world, they're going, well, that's way worse. That's way worse than smashing the markets. The markets need some pain because what's way worse, if we don't get this inflation under control, then the wage that you're getting paid, firstly, the amount of money that you have now is not going to be worth the same tomorrow. And we've seen that in South Africa and Israel when they've gone to 40% inflation, that literally that's, almost half your money in the bank. It's worth half tomorrow.
There was some countries that have experienced this, some smaller countries, where they talk about their money's being worth less than toilet paper.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which is wild to think about.
Yeah.
So Greece, was that one of those ones?
Greece got really smashed in the European financial crisis as well. No, that was, I think it was Zimbabwe.
Right.
It was Zimbabwe, where, a dollar coin was worth far more than toilet paper. And I think it got more up to that. But there was huge corruption there and everything like that. So, that's really not great. So that's what we're seeing there. We're really, trying to tackle inflation there. But
sorry to jump in, but right now for Turkey, they got a 70% inflation rate.
Yeah, that's just wild.
Yeah.
So think about that. Yeah.
What living in Turkey right now might be like.
Yeah, think about that. Like literally your money is worth 70% less than what it once was. And that just smashes an entire economy. So we want to get onto that.
To get it under control.
Oh, yeah, so much so.
Yeah.
So, and that's why this market is so interesting right now and slightly scary, because those two big levers that we spoke about in terms of reducing interest rates and printing more money, those levers are being pulled down to the maximum in the last 2 years.
Yeah, smash.
So it's going to be interesting, because normally you'd pull those levers down when the economy starts going down and it increases productivity and growth, and away you go. Mm-hmm. Those levers are already down, and now we've also got a recession coming on. And then we've
what does a recession actually mean?
I believe it's 2 periods of down growth, something like that. Yeah, which is wild, because by the time you actually acknowledge that we're in a recession, like it's
usually towards the end of it.
Yeah, exactly like that. It's a period of time. Mm-hmm. So
the world is heading towards.
Well, Europe's already in a recession,
right? Yeah. America's heading towards it.
Arguably, yes. Yeah. I mean, I just can't see any other way out of it when we've got those two main levers. And yes, there's other levers that they'll pull on and stuff like that to change it. And you've got that overall market cycle being turned down. And then the big other thing is that we haven't dealt with the debt.
Right.
There's huge debt from the financial crisis in 2012 that we just went, okay, well, here's a lot of free money, and everyone just went and made a lot of money. And that's, for me, one of the big issues of why we see a huge wealth gap right now, was because after 2012, money has never been cheaper before. So the people that could access it and get massive loans because of credit and everything like that, prior history and privilege, they just went nuts for the last 8 years.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's really made this huge gap. And there's still trillions and trillions of dollars of debt out there. So what's going to happen to that debt? We haven't serviced that yet. Mm-hmm. And then there's also this housing crisis as well with, that always plays into it. Yeah, there's plenty of houses and units and skyscrapers around the world, especially in like America, New York, and China, that there's no one in.
Yeah.
So, look, not to get too scary, but I literally don't know how we get out of this without just max pain. Like we need to be a downturn, and the fiscal policy, as far as I can tell, for the last, essentially since the GFC, has just been, we can't have a recession. And so they just prop it up. So we haven't really serviced the debt that was accumulated in 2018. 2008.
And that uncertainty, is that, like, what does that do to sentiment?
Well, people are scared. People are fearful.
And what would a more behaviour like that be from somebody who is scared and fearful? What are they doing with that money?
In a recession, they're putting their money on the bed.
Right.
They're holding on to their money.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what to put it in. There's max fear around there. I'm just going to get smashed. I'm just going to hold on to the money. Which is bad for an economy, as we said earlier, is we need the flow of money. Yeah. So everyone is holding on to their money is not good for growth. It stifles it.
Yeah. So those are some monetary things that are relating to the negative sentiment. Mm-hmm. What else is going on around the world that's adding to these fears?
Yeah, well, I mean, you could probably speak more into the supply chain disruption there overall in within the crypto environment. What's your understanding there?
Well, that's more, to be honest, I can't articulate it to a higher level, but the supply chains around the world of similar, like the flow of supply, right?
Right.
So you're looking at what's happening with China right now with all of these
with food and everything like that.
Yeah, and the lockdowns. So the supply of things going on in China is at its top level because they're all at home. They're all locked down. So that has flow-on effects to the rest of the world.
Yes.
Right? And there's even, another one is the war, which is also relating to supply chains around Europe.
Yeah, where you can go, there's all tariffs and that sort of stuff. And then, that also goes into the energy crisis as well. Like,
what's the energy crisis about?
My limited understanding is that because Russia is one of the world's largest supplier of a range of resources, oil and gas being one of the prominent ones, and providing Europe with a lot of the energy needs through those natural resources, you then put massive embargoes on that. How are they going to get their energy? How are they going to get their natural resources to do the energy? And then on top of that, very aggressive moves towards greener energy supplies.
And has that even become more important after the war? And because of this, because Russia's got large, oil
yeah, well, part of this whole, it's just hilarious to me these days how, we've got to follow the pack. If one person's doing something and if we're anti-Russia, then we've got to be anti-absolutely everything. You can have your opinions on that. But what it means is that every single aspect that is associated with anything Russia gets cancelled. It's like this crazy cancel culture, right? And did it have an effect? I don't know. I don't know. It didn't seem to have any effect on the actual war, but I'll tell you what's had an effect on the overall economy.
Yeah.
Because, and that's the thing, you can put these things and you can go, okay, we're going to militarize the financial sector. Great idea. It's a less physically aggressive way, but who pays for that? You and me, and everyone else pays for that because shit's so much more expensive. Supply chains are absolutely smashed.
Price of fuel.
And then you've got these different economies that are militarizing as well. So they're pumping a bunch of money into their military because they don't know what's going to happen next. And so the weaponization of the financial system really took me by surprise. I didn't think they were going to do that. And that's kind of, scary what they can do there in the future.
For the right reasons, right? Like there was reasons that were...
The right reason now.
Yeah.
It's always the right reason now. Like you look at what's happening, like, with what happened with the truckers in Canada and stuff like that. Trudeau doesn't seem like a crazy dude, but he did some crazy shit because he was able to weaponize the financial system and lock out people and take their money away. Like that works now because it was for the right reason for the sentiment now. But now we've seen
sense of precedent.
Now we've seen they can do that. So what if you have someone in place that's not doing it for the right reasons, whatever the fuck that means? It's just like people want it all one way and we've got to do it like that. It's like, no, think about this because that's just that person in there right now that you may agree with right now. And it may be the general consensus that, yes, that was used for a good reason. But it's the same. You can really amplify it up to going, okay, well, we dropped the atomic bombs for the right reason. We needed to halt Japan right there. Yes, but you've invented nuclear warfare. Yeah. And who's to say that the person behind the nuclear warfare, now that we've got with Putin, is going to have the same idea and whatever? And at the end of the day, you've killed a lot of people.
He might have his own take on what the right reasons are.
Exactly. And that's not to say whether that technology was going to be invented or not. But the premise there is going... You can't, in my mind, put a certain technology to use and in particular weaponize it like they did in both with the SWIFT system with Russia and both halting transactions and taking money out of bank accounts for Canadians. You can't say that that's work that's just there and then not appreciate or at least acknowledge that this could be used incorrectly in the future.
Of course.
So, for me, that's people don't really consider that. It's just what's convenient for their particular narrative right now.
Which is part of a bullish narrative for crypto, right? The idea of decentralized money and power over your
It's
own money.
Ridiculous that a government can just jump in there and go, no, I'm taking all that money out of those bank accounts. And regardless, this has nothing to do with your view on COVID, pandemic, laws, regulations. No, that's not what I'm talking about here. Irrespective of that, you can't have the government come and take your sovereign wealth. It's like, well, where does that lie? Like, it's supposed to be, my right as a citizen is that I have rights to, I have ownership, I have priority, I have ownership of land and money and whatever.
Yeah.
You can just come in and take that. That's not a pillar of democracy at all.
Yeah.
At all.
Not
irrespective of why it was done.
I agree.
Anyway, so you've got all that going on. So you've got a lot of fear, a lot of doubt in the market.
Sounds pretty bearish, Tom.
We're in a bear market, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the bear market.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah. But there's some strength. The US dollar is still increasing, right?
Yeah. So the US dollar, so the DXY, so it's measured against a basket of, I think, 7. Is that right? Right. 6 major currencies. So the dollar has been in an uptrend since 2011. Mm-hmm. So the DXY, the US dollar, and in 2014, it's really gone into a major uptrend. It's really pushed up, and we are in a parabolic move, right? So we're currently sitting at 104. I think it's like 104.4 US dollars is where the DXY is at.
Yeah,
and what some technical analysis is suggesting that will probably continue to go up to 112, 113, 114, that type of range over the next several months to a year to, I'm not sure exactly when, but that's the way it's looking like it's going. So if the strength of the dollar is increasing, which is, they're raising rates, so that's ideally to combat inflation. Mm-hmm. So I imagine that's part of the reason why the dollar's in an uptrend.
Yeah, it's all relation to the other ones. If they're decreasing more, then
exactly. Like the whole, it's not just the US dollar that's struggling with inflation. It's a lot of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So with that being said, and us scaring away the other 2 listeners that we have because we're saying everything's blood red and it's a catastrophe. We're in the bear, as everyone has acknowledged now. How long do you think, Dos, we could be in this bear market for?
Crypto or everything?
Let's go crypto.
See, we'll refer back to the video we did last week about the 7 reasons why I think we could pull out of this bearish trend. Yeah. I think whilst the macro environment is like it is, it's bearish, it's scary. There is no reason why anybody should be bullish right now. But with crypto, there are heaps of things that are coming, that are on the horizon, that are bullish for crypto.
Yes. Utility is still being built.
Utility, users, integration, technology improvements. Like the technology is getting improved at this rapid rate. Like things that weren't possible 6 months ago. Like these, we're building. People in the space are building and pushing the edges.
Yeah.
They're really doing well. There's some really smart people in the crypto space. And like we're kind of talking about a little bit earlier, that people are starting to wake up for the financial revolution of like, hey, maybe my dollar isn't my dollar. Maybe my dollar technically belongs to the US government and I'm leasing that dollar off them, using it. Because they can decide to, in some of the examples you talked about earlier, they can decide to take it back if they have the right reasons. Clearly. So technology like crypto, like even Bitcoin, and like even with Bitcoin, the idea of just decentralized money has a really strong use case.
Yes,
and it's becoming more obvious every day to people, and it's the ability to access it through technology and regulation. All of this is only going in the right direction. So I think for the moment we'll continue with this bearish trend with the rest of the world until something happens, until one of those 7 reasons that we spoke before. It might need to be a combination of those things. We will start to decouple, in my opinion, from the tech markets, the stock tech markets, right? The technological stocks. We're going to decouple and we're going to create our own, or crypto is going to create its own path. Now, macro will still affect crypto. I'm not suggesting that, just because we might decouple means that it's not this crypto stuff.
Well, at the end of the day, if people got less access to money,
Yeah.
and money's more expensive, the consumer out there has got less ability to put it into crypto.
Of course, makes sense. But then when the macro does decide to flip, like when I think the idea is that we've seen in the raising of rates start to be effective against inflation, and they're going to continue to raise like 50 basis points at multiple times. They already did one just recently, a couple more. That's kind of suggesting that there's going to be hard money is ahead for at least the next little while.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that time frame of the end of the summer, the American summer,
related to the election.
You've got the election on the other side. And what does Sleepy Joe want to be about? He wants to be interested, demonstrate interest in the economy.
And because he went, it's actually quite strategic. I wonder if he was thinking about this. I'm sure.
Well, it hits both, doesn't it?
I've
gotten inflation under control.
We got it down. Like by then,
it's going to be
you can have a few things to point to say we got it. And hey, markets are going to come back too. Like you get the best of both worlds. Yeah, vote for me.
Exactly. I got inflation under control, and now the economy is starting to move back. But I don't think growth is going to come back for a while, and especially in the macro markets and the macro sector. Yep. But I think crypto is more sharply affected. It's going to decrease more, and it's going to get back quicker. And honestly, I think with everything being smashed, and even the yield curves being smashed as well, and the bond markets and that sort of stuff, and even commodities, I think people are going to be looking for greener pastures and going, well, actually, look how low crypto is, and the bigger ones there. And I think that volume of money is going to come back a bit quicker there. Time frame, how long are you thinking if we could pin you to a stake and take your word for it that what Dos says is going to happen?
Oh, I couldn't give you a good one. I think we're going to probably be at the bottoms for a little while. So are you talking about when we get to the bottom?
When are you going to see, what I'm asking that is when we're going to see a true uptrend, a resurgence, not just one of these sort of bounces and then back down again.
I think, where are we at now? We're at mid-May.
Let's say.
Yeah.
We are literally mid-May.
Mid-May. I think 4 or 5 months. Well, let's go with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're feeling that really it's going to be protracted into the Australian summer, American winter, and really we're looking for an uptrend before Christmas and say November.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
The start of the uptrend. Not saying that will be where it ends.
Yeah, it's going to sort of plateau around that bottom, whatever that bottom is. But
we're going to be ranging
for about 4 or 5 months.
Yes. I don't know exactly, but if you
I'm asking you to just have a guess. And if my guess, I feel that it might be a little bit quicker.
Right.
Yeah, I'm feeling sort of September.
Okay. That we start to see a strong uptrend in crypto.
Yeah, I think a lot of these rate hikes are factored in. I think hopefully we'll have some different things happening in Europe with the Russian saga. Hopefully supply chain issues are going to be, we'll see, depends. But I think a huge thing about the election and then they're beating their chest saying they got inflation under control. It's an uptrend. But what I do feel in that overall macro structure is that we're going to have an uptrend that's going to be decent. And then I think next year we're going to fall off a cliff.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think they're going to really try and push this economy back up and almost put their head in the sand. And, we're in a recession, but we're not really in a recession. Because at the end of the day, we've got to feel some pain for all the pumping up that we've been doing over the last 10 years.
Gotta pay your dues.
Yeah, with the debt and then with all the printing and so much debt out there, and no one's really paid for it.